Hello, this is James. Big updates in the notification box today. We have Yami Merrick and a Forbidden Limited List update. And let's take a look at Yami Merrick first. This is the smaller of the two pieces of news. So we get Yami Merrick at the gate, and we're going to be able to farm for all the lava golems and all the Ra's disciples, and then magical stone excavation and mask of remnants. And we're also getting, if you don't already have it, Winged Dragon of Ra added to the lifetime missions, and of course the skill Power of the Tributed. And if you want to farm for all of your lava golems, farm deck can be found here. And then, but what we want to get to is that new Forbidden Limited List, that new ban list, and the skill rebalancing. So skill rebalancing is going to take place on August 21st, and what's going to get hit is beatdown. Honestly, this was expected, and they're not nerfing it as much as I thought that they would. I thought that maybe they would reduce the attack increase, or they would make it like once per duel or something. But all they're doing is they are making the buff only apply to the level 5 or higher monsters. So with your for hires, you had a Dinah and a Beat and a Dompa all on the field, and everybody would get boosted by 300 points. Dompa would go to 800, Beat would go to 1500, and then Dinah would go to 2800. But now Dompa stays at 500, Beat stays at 1200, Dinah goes up to 2800. And obviously this impacts, well, a lot of free-to-play decks, because Beatdown is a really good free-to-play skill. But this impacts for hires, but not Hazy Flame Beatdown, because every monster in Hazy Flame is level 6 or higher. Well, just level 6. Which is interesting. I wonder why they did it this way. Because for us right now, it's mostly just hitting for hires. But I think that Mermail's coming in the next main box, likely in September. Also, they function in a similar way to for hires. And by that I mean you're gonna special out one big monster, and then you're gonna have multiple smaller monsters. So this does hit for hires, but I think it's also a preemptive nerf. And I'm glad that we're still able to use the skill though. I'm glad it's not like there isn't like a life point requirement, or it's like once per duel, because that would absolutely kill Beatdown. And Beatdown makes a lot of decks relevant, just giving them that attack boost and the initiative. Speaking of hitting for hires, on the Forbidden Limited List, we have we have Dinah, hero for hire, limited to 1, and Dompa, limited to 2, and then Baby Tiger. So let's talk about the for hires first. Alright, now, what does limited to 1 mean? So, if you don't already know, limited to 1 means that only one card from the whole limited list can be used. So, Dinah is limited to 1. You can have one Dinah, and then also, and no other cards from the entire limited list. That doesn't really apply to Dinah himself, because there isn't really anything that's relevant to for hires besides Dinah on the limited list. And then Beat, I keep saying Beat, Dompa is limited to 2. So this means that you can't run enemy controller. They've removed enemy controller from for hires, because people used two Dompa to begin with. Dompa being semi-limited, enemy controller is also semi-limited. You can have 2 Dompa, 0 enemy controller, 1 Dompa, 1 enemy controller, or the option that nobody's going to choose, which is 0 Dompa and 2 enemy controller. So you can still have, so you're going to have your 1 Dinah, obviously. You're going to have your 2 Dompa, obviously. And then you can still have 3 Wiz, which is interesting, because it means that Konami is not worried about Wiz's effect, because honestly, in the for hires matchup, when you're not playing for hires, when you're not using the monster effects, Wiz is a terror, right? If you're trying to play a trap deck, you're trying to play like a harem deck, or masked heroes, if you're trying to play masked heroes or harem, Wiz is the thing that they search for. Wiz is the monster that shuts those decks down, and then, you know, I guess you can mess around with Dyna if you want to. But against harem and masked heroes, it's still the two top decks besides for hires. Wiz is the thing that counters those decks, and Wiz is not getting hit. What they're more worried about, I infer, is Dyna banishing, not even the strength of Dyna, not even his size and power, his effect of banishing banishing whatever you want from your opponent's graveyard, and effectively, except in the case of spellbooks, making those cards inaccessible. And I think that has to do with Mermails. So Mermails, based on the leaks, they don't have a lot of spells, they have a lot of monster effects, and then they also have a lot of stuff that pulls monsters out of the graveyard, like you can special summon Abyss Megalo out of the graveyard. And I think that they probably did some play testing, and they're like, oh, these for hires, they're kind of kicking the star of the main box in the teeth. Like, we can't have that, and that's why we got to hurry up and have this ban list. And one more thing. This does go in effect just a little bit before the KC Cup, because Forbidden Limited List is implemented on the 29th, and that's basically when the KC Cup starts. So we're not going to have for hires at full strength for the KC Cup. And then also Baby Tiger. Now I'm neglecting the Baby Tiger a little bit, because in the Odeon trap deck, you only really run one Baby Tiger, and you don't see him. And the only way you're going to see him a lot is if you search him with Princess, which you don't really want to do. It's a little bit of a waste. And then also in the Odeon trap deck, in the Odeon harem deck, you can't use Holy Guard, right? So, and with all these huge monsters running around, especially with Mermails and UAs coming out, you don't really want to be running your Baby Tiger into your opponent's monster to get that banish. So even though basically you can't run Baby Tiger and harem anymore, because again, you have to choose between one Baby Tiger and one ambush, or 2 and 0, or 0 and 2. Obviously you're gonna pick the ambush card. I don't think I actually haven't been using Baby. I know I love him, but I haven't been using Baby Tiger in my Odeon trap deck. I've been using the Big Tiger because he gets really big, and he also protects your Princess, and that's a card that you actually want to be searching. Let's take a look at some sort of post-nerf for hires deck. Let's take a look at that. So in the absence of beatdown, and if you want to test this, I would suggest testing it with Ties That Binds. Ties That Binds gives every monster 100 attack points for every monster that is on the field. So if you have 3 monsters, everybody gets 300. It does the same thing in the For Hires mirror match, in that it boosts your Dyna over the enemy Dyna, boosts your beat over the enemy beat, and then you're testing a skill, because once the ban list comes out, you got to learn how to play the new ban list. Like, yeah, you can play with the beatdown, but you're not, that knowledge isn't going to carry over. So I would suggest testing it with the Ties That Bind, and then what I like to do with For Hires is just 2 of each beast, and I only have 2 beat, and then 2 whiz, and then we're only getting the 1 Dyna, and then 0 enemy controller. We can't use enemy controller because we're using the 2 Donpa. I don't think you would give up Donpa for enemy controller. I'm pretty sure about that. And then, so looking at this now, what I'm seeing is you're gonna want your 3rd beat. You're gonna want your 3rd beat so that you can definitely search out your 1 Dyna if you need it. You could do this. You could do 3 Whiz. And that's actually pretty similar to how it was, because, right, everybody just did 2 of everything and like 3 beats. And then so you basically have the same ratio. You say you have 4 high-level furries, so you have the same chance of bricking as you would normally. But I'm not certain that you would do that, for the simple reason that that Wiz's effect of negating spells and traps, I think that we're now moving away from spells and traps, and we're going to be moving into more decks having monster effects, not just for hires with their super powerful monster effects. Now mermales and ultra athletes are going to have really powerful monster effects. So I'm not, since for hires are going to be getting nerfed, I'm not going to be digging for my 3rd beat anytime soon, so I'm probably going to go 3 seal, sure. Just because I like to have plenty of monsters in the for hires deck. Now, for our back row, we want to have removal. We want to have those mayhems. And honestly, I'm tempted to go for a 3rd mayhem, because if Dyna gets hit, I want to have access to him. But you know, with 3 seals, we can revive cards. We can pull cards back from the grave. So maybe not. I'm tempted to reach for the Chalice, but with Fur Hires again getting nerfed, we need to worry about the second biggest matchup, which is Amazoness. And then better than Chalice against Amazoness is Super Rush Headlong. And then of course we're going to do 2 Treacherous Trap Hole, just because I like it. And then kind of a toss-up between Treacherous Trap Hole and then this card, Training for Hire for all your training needs, which is blah blah blah. But what I'm thinking about with Training for Hire for all your training needs is that if your Wiz gets destroyed, you can then special out your Dyna from your deck. So this is just a speculative post-nerf for Hires build. I'll probably do a separate video on just this deck by itself. Thank you for watching.